Hey, welcome back. Here we are, random vlog number 3. Today, we're going to get back into the 302 build for my buddy Eric's Jeep. Got a pretty good jump on this. Let's take a peek and see what we've got done so far, and let's get this thing done. All right. So I believe I introduced this in my random vlog number 1. This is the 5-liter build that's going to be going in my buddy Eric's Jeep Wrangler build that he's doing. First engine we started with ended up having a cracked block. Had so much rust in the cooling jackets it actually split the block on the side. So that was junk. We ended up picking up this block from Brad at Riding Shotgun Adventures. This was just a roller truck motor. Sent it to the machine shop. Got it all checked out. Bores are good. We got a fresh hone on the bores. We have fresh cam bearings already installed. It's already all washed, cleaned out, degreased. I got freeze plugs, oil galley plugs. Everything's installed. We did actually tap the press-in oil galleys for screw-in plugs, just for a little more reliability. So basically ready to start assembling this. Just going to be a stock 302 build using stock cranks, stock rods, factory forged pistons. We have some nice, what are these? Speed Pro. Yeah. Seal Power. Seal Power rings, plasma moly, top rings. Everything's been gapped. Got 24 to 22 thousandths on the top 2 rings, so we're all good there. So basically, I can start throwing it together with the table of parts behind me. Ford Motorsport B303 cam, set of stock E7 heads with upgraded valve springs, fresh valve job, valve stem seals. And we're going to convert it all to Explorer front accessory dress. So it'll be a different timing. Everything from the timing cover out is going to be Explorer. Balancer, water pump, timing cover, accessory bracket. So it's a lot stubbier. It makes it nice for packaging because everything's shorter. So anyway, let's get into it. So for Eric's Jeep motor, we got it back from the machine shop, and obviously here you can see it is ready to assemble. Got new cam bearings put in it. We knocked out all the press-in oil galley plugs, cleaned everything out, tapped them for screw-in plugs. The bores checked out perfect, actually. Motor's going to have 3.5 thousandths piston to wall clearance. We got the rings all gapped. Everything's ready to go. Cylinders are honed. I just washed it a couple good times. Hit it with the bottle torch. Got it all dried off, taped up, and I'm going to hit it with some primer, get a couple good coats on it today. Then hit it with the final color it's going to be. And then I can start putting in freeze plugs, oil galley plugs, and assembling the bottom end. So this should start moving along pretty good now. All right, I moved everything out here, center of the shop. Got the block all ready to go. Oil pan, brand new Fox body oil pan. That's all cleaned up. I'm really liking, I've been using this new, what is it here? This new paint from, I believe from Seymour. Yeah, Cast Blast. This is the cast iron, and I've been using their cast aluminum on all the aluminum parts. These look amazing. So I think this will be if nothing, it's going to be a cool looking motor. If it doesn't doesn't run for crap, but I'm sure it will. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and we'll get the mains in and get the crank all cleaned up one last time. Make sure it's nice and clean, and we'll get the crank in it, get that all cinched down, and we'll start dropping slugs in this thing. So let's get after it. All right, I got the main bearings in. It's very important. You have the slots in the bearings for the oil feed. Goes in the block side. The solid part of the bearings go in the caps always. Permatex Ultra Slick assembly lube. Also, make sure you get it on both sides of the thrust bearing. Got the crankshaft all cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and set the crank in. We'll get the caps on, get them all torqued down, and then the pistons. All right, putting the main caps on. It's really important on these small block Fords. Right here on this back edges of the rear main cap, put a little bit of RTV there. Otherwise, you will probably end up with an oil leak that you're going to think is the rear main seal, but it's not. Oil will weep between the block and the cap on this back edge here. So always put a little bit of sealant there. And it's also worth noting this crankshaft, the flywheel bolts or flex plate bolts, the threaded holes in the back of the crankshaft go all the way through into the crankcase. So if you do not put thread sealer on those bolts when you put the flywheel or the flex plate on, you can also get an oil leak coming right through the threads of those bolts too, which again will look like a rear main seal leak. So very important back here, getting this oil pan sealed good here, the cap sealed to the block, and the bolts sealed real good in the crankshaft. This can just ruin your entire project as far as having massive oil leaks at the back of the motor. So make note of those, do those right. So main caps are on. Used to reusing the stock bolts. They've only been assembled one time. This motor, I took it apart for the first time. So I like using ARP fastener lube. I always put just a little dab on the thread of the bolt and on the back side of the head, or wherever it mates. Friction will throw off torque settings. So I want to get an accurate torque setting on these. So I want to make sure that I remove all the friction that I can. So the bolts will slip nicely against the caps, and I'll get a good accurate torque reading on these. So get these all torqued down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one cap at a time, and I'm going to spin the crank. I'll do another cap, spin the crank. At any point when I'm doing that, if the crankshaft, if I notice a resistance, then I know I have a problem. Either the crankshaft has a bend in it, the line bore is off, something wrong with the caps, maybe it's a wrong cap for the motor. So it's always important when I'm torquing these down, do one at a time, spin the crank. It should feel exactly the same, start to finish, no resistance. So pay attention to that. It's very important. All right. Torque spec for these main caps is 70 foot-pounds. I'm going to do it in 2 stages. I'm going to do them all 40, and I'll go back over them, and I'll bump it up to 70. So, again, like I said, the hell? There we go. Wasn't good. All right. Here we go. 40. 40. Spin the crank. Not a problem. 40. 40. Crank still feels the same. 40. 40. Feels good. 40. 40. All right. Good sign. Feels good. Everything feels good. I don't suspect any issues with this. So next thing after this is all torqued down, before I put the connecting rods in or do anything else, timing chain, I want to check the end play on the crankshaft, because this motor, when it came apart, it had excessive end play. It was a stick shift car. It's got a pilot bearing in it. So all those years of someone pushing the clutch pedal in, all that pressure is always trying to shove this crankshaft forward, so it'll wear out the thrust bearing and put some excessive end play in it, and you'll lose oil pressure. It'll wear out the timing chain because you're pushing the crank out. It's going to flex that chain. So I want to get a measurement on this, make sure the end play is good, and then we'll continue. All right. Before, this motor had, I think it was 9.5 thousandths. Now We are at 4.5. Yeah, 4.5. That's good. 0. Or stretch it. Yeah, 4.5, almost 5. That's good. That's way better. Okay, now I'm going to put the camshaft in now before I put the pistons in. Not a big deal. Ford Motorsport B303 hydraulic roller. Got a nice long handle screwed in here. And apply assembly lube as it goes in the block. Make sure all these journals are lubed up really good. Okay. All right. This stuff is all stringy. And very carefully turn it, spread it around. For the next one, this one is in. A little more lube. All right, and one more. All right, camshaft is in. All right, so I got the camshaft retaining plate. They're always marked back, bottom. So you need to make sure that this goes on the right way. So it blocks, has this oil feed, it channels through this, feeds the front of here. I'm going to use blue Loctite on all of, there's 3 bolts. 2 for the cam plate, 1 for the camshaft. We're going to go ahead, this one in. I know I'll probably get some crap for this. Sure, there is a torque spec for these, but I don't know what it is. So I just do what feels good to me. I've built lots and lots of these at this point. It's a tiny fastener, so it don't need, it's probably less than 15 foot-pounds. Also make sure there are different length pins for the camshaft that engage the timing gear. Make sure you're using the right length one, whether you have a fuel pump eccentric or how thick the gear is. You need to make sure you got the right one that fully engages that camshaft gear, or again, you'll be in for a world of hurt. Okay. So camshaft plate is on. And I'm going to get this all lined up and slide the timing chain on next. All right, so I'm just using just a normal single roller timing chain. I've had interference problems in the past when I've used a double roller with these Explorer front dresses. So I just choose to use a single roller so I don't have to take things apart or not realize maybe the cam bolt is rubbing on the back side of the timing cover, putting aluminum through the motor. So I just prefer to use these narrower single roller. This is not really a performance motor, so to speak. So there's really nothing wrong with just doing a single roller. The crank gear, it's not adjustable. It's just 0. Only has 1 setting on it. So we'll go ahead and slide that on the keyway. We're going to throw chain on. And we got our timing mark here. So, camshaft. I think we're just going to line up the marks. We're going to call it good, because this timing chain's not adjustable anyway. So, there we go. The dots all line up. Got the camshaft bolt, blue Loctite. Make sure this engages that hole for the pin. It's what will stop the pin from coming out of the camshaft. It's got a little oil slinger on the front of it. Some carbureted motors, I have this offset fuel pump eccentric that'll drive a mechanical fuel pump. This was an EFI motor, so it didn't have that, even though it's going to be a carbureted motor again. He's going to be doing electric pump, so it's not that critical. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the front cover on this using some ultra gray RTV, the gasket. Make sure you got your alignment dowels in the bottom of the block. Gasket will go on. Now for this Explorer front dress, you can go online. There's multiple places you can find a listing of the hardware, the bolts you're going to need for this new timing cover, because it's not like a Fox body. The bolts are all different. So Eric went and he had found the list and bought me all the stainless bolts for this. So hopefully all these are the right ones and they're all the right length. I'm going to put some RTV on the back side of the cover, bolt it on. These alignment dowels here, they go in the timing cover, and that's what aligns the crankshaft inside the seal here. So if you don't have those, there's enough play in these bolts where the cover can be off a little bit. And what will happen is you'll put a lot of pressure on one side of the seal, and you'll wear it out, and you'll end up with a front crank seal right around the harmonic balancer. So you don't want that. So let me goop this up, and we'll get this on, and then we'll start putting the bolts in and the water pump. All right. I don't go crazy with the RTV. Just takes a little beat of it. That's all. Take it, line it up on the dowels. That one. And, oh, that's right. Okay. Ran into my first problem. I forgot. That has to be deleted. It interferes with the back side of the timing cover. That little oil slinger. I got to get that off here real quick. All right, let's try this again. This little piece here, can't use it. That's got to go bye-bye. So now, let's get the timing cover on. Got the dowel there, the dowel there. Okay, that's on. I'm going to start these on the bottom here. Some of these bolts, where the hell did it go? Go into cooling jackets. They're not blind holes, so I like to put a little bit of liquid Teflon on the threads just to guarantee that there's no leaks. Again, don't need a lot. All right, there's the water pump, timing cover, all bolted on, all stainless hardware. Looks good. A couple spots had to like stack up a few washers. Bolts were just a little bit long in a couple of spots, but no big deal. Looks good. All right, so now I think I'm gonna throw the harmonic balancer on just yet, but now I need to get ready, start slamming pistons in this thing. Okay, ready to put the pistons in. So what we have here, just a stock Mustang HO forged piston. These were made by TRW. Got these all cleaned up. We have the new seal power rings on here. They're already gapped. 24, 22 thousandths. We replaced the stock rod bolts with new ARP rod bolts. Got the big end of the rods resized. So these are all good to go. So basically, I'm gonna oil up all the cylinders. I'm just gonna do this bank together. Tapered piston installer here, and the same Cleveite 77 bearings going in it for the rod. So we'll get these in, torque these down to 35 pounds with lube on them, flip it over, do the other 4, and get this bottom end buttoned up. So go ahead. I'm not going to be touching the phone here. I'm going to go ahead and get these all oiled up and start dropping these in. So cylinder walls are already oiled up. Skirts are oiled up. Ring gaps are in the correct orientation. And now, piston's got a dot on the top to face forward. And drop it in the ring compressor. The skirt helps kind of line it up. Really? There it goes. Okay. So I just kind of like to use my finger to guide the big end down and just seat it. There it is. That one's in. I always want to make sure when these are going in, you know, the rods are numbered. Sometimes you get confusing. Is it numbered? Is the rod numbered for the cylinder, or is it numbered for an order? One quick, easy way to check is look at the taper end of the rod or the cap. There's a radius side and there's a flat side. The radius side will always go out to the counterweights. The flat side will go up against the other connecting rod next to it on that same journal. So it's pretty easy to see if you've got the pistons in the wrong spot. None of this stuff will line up right. So some lube on the bearing. I got my numbers here. Number 3 facing out. Tapered part of the rod is going out towards the counterweight, so I know it's right. Slap the cap on, some bolts, and 35 foot-pounds. Let's kind of get them both snug first. Then 35, 35. And oil pump pickup is on. I'm going to go ahead and throw the pan on without the gasket. And I'm going to get a measurement to see how much pan to pickup clearance there is. Let's get that done. Okay, gasket is seated on. I made sure down in these valleys here, that was all in there real good. So now, where's my silicone? I'm going to put a little bit on the oil pan in those same places. Then we're going to slap it on. So, I'm going to put some along here. Not a lot. I just want it so that when it dries, this is going to help hold everything in place. Got no chance of blowing this oil pan gasket out. All right. Let's throw it on. Okay. go. There's the alignment pegs. There it is. Get some hardware in it. Get it cinched down. Right. Pan reinforcement rail is on. I got all the smaller bolts in. Now these little alignment things, little trick. Don't throw these away yet, because they work awesome for also aligning the intake manifold. So you can drop it straight down and not screw up moving the intake gaskets. So put these little blue things aside. And when we get ready to put the intake on, we'll dig them back out again. And there it is. Bottom end, short block is all sealed up. Any of that RTV that squished out the back here, I just use my finger. Just kind of lay it all in there. Make sure it's got a good seal. All the pan bolts are tight. Go ahead and flip it over. And we're ready to finish the long block now. Hell yeah. All right, good morning. It's the next day. Well, I wish I would have planned ahead better yesterday and had the heads cleaned up and already painted early in the day, so I could have just kept rolling last night, but I forgot. So, like I said, last thing I did, I cleaned up and painted the heads. Those dried overnight. Short block is done and ready. I got the deck on this side all cleaned. Towel with some brake clean, get the surface really nice and clean. Felpro head gasket. Always look for, there's a front and a back. They're always marked front. Don't pay attention to which side has that blue printed stuff on it anyway. That doesn't indicate top or bottom. That means nothing. So just look for the front. So the head gasket is on correctly. I have the head dowels installed. Always make sure you have the head dowels in. And I'm basically going to stand the heads up. I'm going to give the surface one last cleaning. And we're going to set them in place and bolt them all down with some brand new ARP head bolts. So let's do it. Okay. I got this head set on. I got the ARP head bolts. So I'm going to go ahead again. Friction. I'm going to put the head bolts in, and I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the thread and a little bit of lube on the back side of this washer. Go ahead and strap these in, get them hand started. I'm going to do that the same for all of the top row of the bolts. The bottom row, they go into a cooling jacket. So the bottom row of head bolts must be sealed with thread sealer. So I will put lube on the washers, and I will put liquid Teflon on the threads where they go into the block. So I'm going to do all that. Then I'll get these torqued down. So let me knock this out and we'll be back. Okay, head bolts are in. They're all lubed up. I'm going to go ahead and torque these in a couple different steps. I'm going to start off about 40 foot-pounds. Go through the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. Going to bump that up, and eventually I'm going to end up probably about 75 foot-pounds on these. Okay, so both heads are on. I got all the push rods in, got them all cleaned up. Always make sure, blow through them, make sure there's nothing plugging them up on the inside. I blow them out with brake clean, a little straw. I've got some assembly lube on the tips of the valves and the tips of the push rods. So yes, this is a budget build. This is probably about as cheaply as you can get away with freshening up a small block Ford, but uh, still doesn't mean you cut corners and you don't care. Some things to pay attention to is we're reusing all the factory valve train. They're good. Ford did a good job with these. They have these stamped steel rockers, and they have these little slider fulcrums in them. Again, friction. So always inspect the stamp rockers. You want to look at the tip where it rides on the valve. Make sure that's not wore out. Look at the cup where the push rod goes. Make sure that's not all wore out, blown out. But on the inside, see those shiny parts there? That's where this fulcrum sits inside there, and this rocks constantly back and forth for thousands and thousands of miles. Well, this fulcrum has little oil grooves, and that oil groove has basically wore a little spot into the bottom of that rocker body. You want to make sure you put this back in. They're kind of V-shaped. Pay attention, put them back in the same way they were. If you were to put them in the other way, there are those little grooves left, little high spots inside the rocker here. If you were to put them in backwards, basically you're going to be shaving off that little bit of metal in every one of these rockers that's a high spot right now. It's going to grind it off and basically put metal shavings right in your brand new fresh motor. So ideally, new ones would be the best way to go, but I don't even know if you can buy these, and I don't know if I would trust aftermarket ones anyway. The Ford ones have lasted forever. I would just assume reuse these. So good amount of assembly lube in here on the fulcrums. Make sure the fulcrum, the oil grooves, correspond with the grooves that are already kind of wore into the rocker, just to save the potential of shoving unwanted metal shavings through the motor. Might not be a lot, but it's something, and I wouldn't want it through a fresh motor that I just spent all this time building and the money that I put into it. So just another little tip: don't cut corners on everything. So anyway, let me slap these on. We'll get the valve train all set up and moving on. Valve train all done and assembled. Got the Felpro intake gaskets on. These are a graphite type gasket, so I'm not going to be putting any kind of RTV on them between the head and the intake. It's got the hot air for the EGR passage here. Sometimes you can get these gaskets that have a graphite little block off plate that goes in there. This one, we don't have to worry about it because the carbureted intake does not have that passage. So it's already blocked off at the intake. So we're good. So I'm just going to get some RTV. I don't use the rubber seals here. I just do a thick bead of RTV from head to head, front and back. Drop the intake and just let that set up. And just doing a dry fit. Make sure everything's good with the intake. Sometimes I've seen interference between the intake and the head right here, where some machining would have to be done. Just want to make sure nothing is wrong there. We're good. Everything is seated down good. Looks nice. I'll just get my bead of silicone on there. We will tighten this sucker up. All right, let's do it. Okay, intake gaskets are on. The intake gaskets on the bottom have little tabs that hook onto the head gasket. You need to make sure you have those all attached the right way so the intake gasket is in the right place. So using my little oil pan alignment dowels. So now I'm going to put a nice fat bead of silicone in the corner of the intake. Some people refer to this as the China wall. Not really sure why they do that, but they do. I want this nice and thick, probably about 1/4 of an inch tall. One there, and one up here. A little air bubble in there. Okay. That looks good. Now grab the intake, set her on. Intake's already clean, but we'll go ahead, line up these dowels straight down. Yep, silicone is oozing out. No gaps. All right, we're good. I'm gonna grab the intake bolts and start cinching this down. Make sure you run through the intake bolt pattern a couple times, because as you work your way out, the middle ones will loosen up. You'll have to hit them again probably about 3 times, going through the full sequence. These are probably around 25 foot-pounds. I just go by feel. I know what tight is. I know it's good enough for them. So, feeling good. Middle ones are not loosening up anymore. Intake, done. We're good. Wow. And these are a set of Holley, they call them Sniper brand, aluminum fabricated valve covers. Eric had these all, had the Sniper logos removed and had them powder coated. This is this blue, I can't remember what he calls this, tropic blue or something maybe, but this is going to be one of the accent colors on his Jeep. So this is all going to tie in together with the whole Jeep theme, what he's going for. I think it's going to be really cool. I like his idea of mixing the Ford and the Jeep stuff. And if he follows through with the idea that he was telling me about, with incorporating some old school Ford Motorsport designs and colors, I think it's going to be pretty sweet. So looking forward to seeing that. Anyway, let me get this wrapped up. Get the distributor stabbed. And that's it. And voila! There it is. All done. Turned out very nice. Only thing left to do is just got to change the gear on the distributor. It's got a cast iron gear. Got to put the steel gear on it. But anyway, here it is. Turned out very well. Let's get a close-up look at it. So again, basically just a stock Mustang HO rebuild. All new bearings, all new rings, fresh hone on the cylinders, new cam bearings, Ford Motorsport B303 cam, dual plane intake, trick flow valve spring kit. Heads have been all cleaned up, valve guides done, valve seats, new timing chain, water pump, timing cover, harmonic balancer. And I believe there's going to be a 650 double pumper going on this. So there it is. All right, that's going to wrap up this random vlog number 3. The Jeep 302 project is done and out of my hands. So hopefully in future videos, we'll actually see the vehicle that this is going in. So done with this, moving on. Going to get back on the LS Bronco 2 and the Coyote Swap Thunderbird. So stick around, check out those videos, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.